And yeah, actually, I am already very happy about this result because one thing for sure, we got nice um, color, a nice composition, and talk about color. I think this is something I didn't talk about much, previously. And I guess it's because, our lighting setting, skylight and sunlight, well, just naturally create giving us a nice color combination, which, warm and cold color. And I guess this is getting stronger when we, moving into another direction, which is the sandy, rocky environment. And we can see the contrast between, very, very warm lighting part and the shadow part, sorry, the cold shadow part, the contrast between color is just becoming more obviously and more strong. And of course, according to the color, is absolutely a very important topic that I think I almost didn't talk about it at all. Um, because for we need a contract, but if the contract is too strong, it would be very weird. Because for example, the saturation of or the hue between the warm and the cold color, it should be had a certain balance. Also, it had a very this topic itself, it had its own to-do list, and I think you can check it this some books such as I think from James Gurney, the creator of the Dinosaur Empire. I he got a lot of good book talk about the color series, and also I feel like the topic of color series um it's kind of like you should putting it's kind of like a perspective, things like perspective, which is the fundamental for artists. So that's one of the reason and excuse for me to not talk about it too much. But I would say, for sure you need to do it. You needed to learn it once you had the time, and or if you are using Blender and you try to creating some concept, painting or design yourself, then realize, man, why my color is getting weird, my value is weird. So, um, you know, if you're self-taught, then I guess you really needed to go to some bookstore or looking some tutorial, talk about perspective, color, talk about value, you know, and just reading about all those knowledge and then apply all those things on your work. At least that's how I did it. It's like I I used to just drawing and I didn't my value is just weird and my color is weird. And then later I read all those good books like How to Render and or Color and Light by James Gurney. I tried to understanding what they're talking about, and I realized, oh, actually, or there's a guideline, there's a to-do list, there's a principle to follow, and by following those principles, I at least I can creating something that look like horrible, Then along with the time, the mileage that I put in, I still do understanding more and more. It's like you start with just follow, but or copy, but later on you will develop your own understanding regarding to all those topics. So yeah, but right now, as you can see, I'm doing a little pen over to creating more destruction on my those architecture. So yeah, it's like I did talk about it previously, which is for sure these things could be done in 3D and it could giving us a lot of benefit. But for me, it's like I kind of not sure. I designed it to into 2D to pen over and design a little bit, and later on, if I want to go back to this design, this world, I wanted to push and just design more thing in this world, then I will do it in 3D to really brings a nice proper crack and ruin and the destruction for my design in 3D. But right now I designed it to just render out and do it in 2D in pen over. Especially if you have a good understanding about value, about color, about perspective, then you will know how to pen over into 3D, because basically you know how to creating. If you know how to creating 3D illusion on the 2D surface, which is the traditional painting and drawing technique, then pen over is really a very strong weapon for you to doing a very fast and quick way to just demonstrating your idea. And it's just with this tool you can doing your job just very efficient, and most importantly, because communication is also really important, right? Sometimes, and talk about communication is like the topic regarding to how many time and effort and energy you can put into the communicate. And for us, our job is to communicate by visual. So in order to creating a very efficient way to communicate, we for sure we needed to had all the we need to learn all the technique is possible. So by and 2D, 3D technique combined 2D pen over, I think is one of the most strong tool to use to for you to have for every artist to have on their toolbox, because you just don't know. Sometimes it just could be a very simple things, but if you will go back to 3D, you tweak the model, you adjustment the texture, you render it out. Sometimes you don't need to render out because nowadays, since it's rendering is getting faster and faster, but but you still need to do maybe screen capture and put back to Photoshop. Then but pen over is like you know perspective, color, value, so you know how to adjustment shape and form, according just what's in your head, right? So just you can do it much easier. And also adding fog is also another, I think is very benefit, sorry, not benefit, very good way, because um fog is volumetric fog, or a lot of things could be very heavy to render in 3D, and I would say 2D in 2D way, depending fog is just giving us more control, well, not necessarily all the time, for if you don't know how to do it, it's just not gonna be good way to use it. But I think for concept artists, like for artists who already learn how to paint and draw, and I think 2D approach is for sure is a lot easier to do, and a more control, it's easy to control. And yeah, so like I previously talked about, the reason we are adding fog is adding another level of layering, creating this overlapping effect, which is our foreground can overlapping on top of the fog, and the fog is overlapping with on top of the background. You see, we kind of like cards uh, overlapping 2D cards overlapping each other. We're going to use fog to set off something. So that's really what's a very important thing to using the fog. It's not just adding something on it, but we need to asking ourselves, like, is this fog could be set off of something, to is this fog to emphasize the silhouette in the foreground or something. And yeah, and also fog is a nice element to adding another level of contrast between shape and form. So with all those benefits, uh, I'm definitely going to using fog and going to fuck the ass out of these things. Um, yeah, and adding a little settled fog in the foreground to creating a more layer, for the foreground. Like I'm creating, I think I'm creating the background, midground, foreground belong to the the layering, the many ground belong its own ground belong to the foreground. Man, what I'm saying, it's just sorry, my English just wasn't good enough for me to talk about such topic, complicated topic. Um, yeah, I'm adding the central. So the central is exactly identical to the waterfall that I used previously, which in terms of shape and form and the color, and it just I think it's a nice element to bring back to to connect the element inside our environment, to giving us aware of like, oh man, there's something on top of our head. Because usually we if it is this is a video game, then we will walk around, walk on the ground, right? So and maybe well, that depending on the feature of the gameplay, maybe your character can fly or something. But if we just walking on the ground, but there are sandfall coming from above us to drop down, then we will be aware of like, okay, man, maybe there's something on top of us. So I think, yeah, sandfall just overall bring back all the vertical composition and giving us nice rhythm, and also giving also little sandfall here and there. It's just also just another super nice element that just helping us to aware of this little crack, little destruction on our architecture. I think this is just awesome. And also I think it's a dynamic element that we can add in on our environment to increasing just contract between still things and the dynamic elements. I think it's just I'm just till this point I'm just happy about the result and just enjoy the process of painting, enjoying even I'm not a very good painter and I still enjoy it. I just I just feel happy and and later on I will composting this thing inside another file and creating a smart layer, smart smart layer, and it's it can smart layer can giving us some kind of non-destructive modeling, non-destructive composting process. So yeah, and right now I'm using a blending mode called saturation and creating. Yeah, I was using very high saturated color to adding some contract between saturation. And I think this technique is I kind of I used it previously. I didn't talk about it too much. I kind of forget. But I think the reason I forgot to talk about it is like this is really not going to make a hell lot of difference, but for sure it's going to increasing another level of contract, which is the well, saturation, right? So, uh, yeah, saturation and color, and when saturation is increasing, the color is also would be, will be much easy to see and read. And yeah, I think this is the overall image. I would actually I will continue push a little bit after recording. But the overall idea is identical to what I'm talking about previously. So um, yeah, I'm just very happy about the result, and this is the end of our tutorial, and hoping you can learn something. And if you have any question, you can leave on the comment or just direct message me, or you can just leaving your message on our Discord group, or and yeah, thank you for watching, and see you soon.